I'm not a huge fan of the papacy or the Pope, but in this case, I actually agree. I think that there is a danger that this could be weaponized against the populations in general. In fact, one of the things we do on my channel is that we actually read through and lecture on the writings of the elite themselves for the past century. And so we've done about 50, 60 of those texts over the last 10 years. And one of those is the classic by Zbigniew Brzezinski, certainly no fan of Russia. And he wrote in the early 1970s a book called Between Two Ages. And in that book, he said, we're going into the technotronic or technocratic era. The book describes everything from Skynet to genetic mutations to ELF, VLF type weaponry, weather weapons, et cetera. So they had already projected many, many decades ago. You could look at H.G. Wells as well, all of whom thought that you could eventually create a kind of world federalist technocratic state. And the problem is that many of today's Silicon Valley oligarchs still share this same sort of technocratic utopia or perhaps dystopian perspective because they're all about Malthusian depopulation, all the kinds of attitudes that Russia, for example, opposed when it came to the British Empire's Malthusian strategies that they adopted. So the West, unfortunately, has a kind of Malthusian oligarchy at the top. And I think, Vladimir Putin has even referenced this in many of his speeches, that that's the attitude that the West has adopted. And that's the problem, is that Silicon Valley has this same Malthusian depopulation attitude. So to give a bunch of tech oligarchs a kind of power where they're linked in with the U.S. government, that's essentially what has happened here with a lot of Trump's recent strategies and plans for AI. I think that we're setting up a potential dystopian scenario with smart cities and tracking and tracing and carbon controls. But there's also the possibility that there's a lot of hype and that it's a bubble. It could be kind of like, the dot-com boom where it was just way ahead of time, right? Obviously, the internet would become the main means of the way that we would shop, but the dot-com bubble was way ahead of time. So there could be a scam Enron style element to what's happening with AI right now. But if you read futurists like Jacques Attali, again, one of these sort of Western oligarchical elites, Jacques Attali is very clear that the future will be a global hive mind where we're all linked into a global brain. And so to me, that's pretty dystopian.